Great to put faces with this club. It's neat to see this club grow as fast as it has. I've been in this sport since '91, and to see this type of growth in this area with this kind of energy. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that you guys have been putting online, and it's amazing how many events you guys have put together. They're pretty unique, and it definitely makes a club environment a totally unique environment instead of being really stodgy. So congratulations to you guys. Tonight I want to talk a little bit about a subject that gets a lot of heat, a lot of arguments, particularly here in Florida. The official scientific term is called periodization. And what ends up happening in Florida is, and some of you guys are doing it right now, you just finished Ironman Florida, first week in November. You've already got OUC half booked. You've got a couple marathons booked. So what ends up happening is you don't take any time off whatsoever. You train all summer. You get to your event in November, oh great, tri-season's over, I'll focus on my running. And what ends up happening is there's never an off season for you guys, okay? Am I allowed to write on this board?
Sure. Whiteboard?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if that's and I hope these markers work so I don't look foolish. I know Bryce is really in tune, I know Adam as well. The buzzwords that get associated with periodization, and periodization is a fancy word of breaking up the year so that you peak at a certain time. See, in Florida, you guys can race every weekend. I mean, you saw your event calendar. There's sprints, Olympics, half Ironmans, Ironmans, and some of them are literally weeks apart. So what ends up happening is there's a lot of confusion on the body as to when we want to be in our peak form. I mean, literally, if you look on active.com, you could race every single weekend in Florida, okay? So I know Bryce is familiar with, anybody else familiar with Joe Friel? You probably are, Judy, with cycling and stuff like that. It doesn't really matter if there's an overlap in the name. What I want you guys to think about is there's essentially 4 seasons that people don't like to talk about because that means you have to have an off season. The reason why you guys need to pay attention to it is this is the one that nobody does. And this is the one that, quite honestly, is the most important. I'm fortunate enough, I get to coach for a living. We have athletes all over the world. When you have an athlete like I've got in Sweden or Norway or Australia or New Zealand, they have winters that are so cold that racing isn't even an option. So their off season is almost forced upon them, okay? What I want you guys to realize, and I know you don't have paper down, so if you guys want to email me afterwards, I'm happy to send it to you. If you're doing an Ironman, you need at least 6 months of a base before that race, okay? And so, for example, if you're going to be peaking in November, go back 6 months. That's when your training needs to start. You guys had on there Haines City, which is the middle of April. I think it was April 12th, okay? That training for that started in November. Okay, now you're going, wait a second, we just finished Ironman Florida, I'm going to race Haines City. Welcome to the challenge of no off season, okay? And this is where, excuse me, I get a lot of friction because during the off season, and David can attest this coming from a cycling background, you've got to allow yourself to get out of shape. And I know for some of you that are doing this on weight loss or having a personal journey of trying to come over, we do a lot with people who do a lot of coming off of addictions, where training is their only outlet. It's a positive outlet for them. The problem that we run into is if you don't allow yourself to physically recover and mentally recover, by the time you get here, you're already burnt out. We see this pattern repeat itself over and over and over again, particularly in Florida. Because when the season's over in November, there is no off season. You go right back into this, or even worse, you never come out of a competitive cycle, okay? How many of you are willing to go to OUC half and run it 2 minutes slower than you've ever run the OUC half? Okay? And I know tonight's subject is not on heart rate training. I don't know if you guys, have you spoken much on heart rate?
Yes, yeah, we
okay.
have.
I don't know if you went through the 5 zones. Essentially, whether it's 4 or 5, some people banter that. I want you to think about aerobic being easy, anaerobic, lactate tolerance being hard, okay? When you're in this preseason mode, everything you do needs to be aerobic, all right? And where we get into arguments is strength training is not aerobic. So that is your anaerobic training during preseason. And people don't like to hear that because what they want to do is they want to go, especially, you know, like I'm speaking to Bryce because I used to work with Ian Keeley quite a bit. You know, coming off Miami, man, your speed is there, your power's up, everything's good. David's got your power at peak form. You don't want to back off. And the idea of going from zone 5 down to zone 1 and then sitting out there and riding for 2 hours, it makes your skin curl, okay? Because you're thinking you're going to lose your fitness. And that's what I want you to break that mindset. The off season is all about allowing yourself to not wake up to an alarm. And it gives you an opportunity to sleep in. It gives you an opportunity to eat food that you don't normally eat. And again, for somebody who's struggling with weight, I get it, okay? But this is the time, because what we look for with our athletes, and I don't want this to sound pompous, it is what it is. We have beginners all the way up to pros who make a living. We have athletes that make over $8 million a year as athletes. They don't like this, as you can imagine, because what they're convinced is they're going to lose all of their race season fitness, and then they're going to come in here, and then they're going to have to try to play catch up. And it's actually the opposite. It's called the catapult effect. Okay? Can anybody see this bottom line here? If every month that you train, the idea is to break your body down, then you rest a cycle, and you should be at another level. Let's just say that's a 1% improvement. Let's say that's January, that's March. Okay? Then you train and you break yourself down, and then you catapult to the next level. Okay? When you have an off season, what we always say is, if I'll use it in cycling terms because everybody's worked with David here, if your wattage, does anybody not work with wattage or know what that is? I don't want to use that example. Okay, let's say your average speed is 18 miles an hour. Instead of using wattage, we'll use speed, okay? If you can finish a half Ironman or an Olympic distance or even a sprint at 18 miles an hour, our goal is when you come into preseason, you'd be able to ride at 16 or 17. People freak and think that their speed's going to fall down to 12 miles an hour. It won't happen. All right? As soon as you allow yourself to rest and recover, both mentally and physically, and if you want to get really, really in depth, if I were to take blood serum levels and do a blood chemistry report, you have really key vital information in your blood. Cytochrome C, creatine, those are all performance variables. All right? For those of you that are beginners, you're like, I don't want to hear it. Trust me, if you don't pay attention to the off season, you'll be struggling by the time you get back here, okay? What we do is we like to use the off season as an opportunity for you to look back and say what did or didn't go well here. Remember, and again, keep this as a rule of thumb. If you're doing Ironman, you're looking at 6 months. A half Ironman or an Olympic, you're looking at 4 months. And a sprint, you can get in shape in 12 weeks, 3 months. Okay, as a general rule of thumb. One of the assumptions that has to be taken into consideration is, and this is again, and I haven't talked to David about this at all, but just knowing what I know about him, most people don't want to do baseline assessments early season, okay? And you say, well, why wouldn't you use your race results from right here? How many of you didn't have the ideal race at the end of the season, okay? And we've all been there and bought that t-shirt. And so if you're going to use this end of season race result, it's not a good example of why your race went bad. Was it nutrition? Was it overtraining? Was it overstress? Was it dehydration? It was raining? You know, there's just stuff that gets factored in. So what we do at the beginning of the season is we complete baseline assessments. Your takeaway from that word is physical limiters. If you stink at running, how much do you think you run? It's the bane of your existence. You won't run. Okay? If you're a great cyclist, all you want to do is cycle. Especially when you've had great results. Again, I'll use Bryce as an example. Working with David, power goes up. All of a sudden, cycling's fun. Bryce has always been good on the bike. Now he's excellent on the bike. Hey, let's go for a swim, Bryce. No. Don't want to go for a run either. Let's go bike. Okay. So what we always say with our athletes is at the beginning of the season, do your baseline assessments, figure out where you're not good. Some of you can already tell me what you're not good at. It's usually what you don't like. And I know that sounds obvious, okay? But if you're looking at preseason, if all of your workouts are aerobic, meaning heart rate zone 1 and 2, for those of you that train with a heart rate monitor, by the way, I hope you know what your max heart rate numbers are. Otherwise, your zones are wrong. Does that confuse anybody? All right, taking your age, 220 minus your age, plus or minus your resting heart rate, doesn't work. I've seen that be wrong up to 50%. 50% margin of error. That's insane, okay? So what I want you guys to be thinking about is during your preseason, everything should be very, very easy. Swim, bike, run, you should be able to pass the talk test. If you can't talk to somebody or sing to your iPhone, you're going too hard. Slow down. you have a heart rate monitor, let it be your dictator, okay? This is where Bryce is not fun to be around, okay? Because he's over there literally cringing. He just wants to go, 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 all right? The thing that you want to be thinking about is during your preseason, you want to be maximizing your aerobic base and you want to be maximizing your strength. That's another way to look at preseason, okay? And